This is the Plain English Real Estate Show with your host, Rowena Patton, a show that focuses on the real estate market in terms you can easily understand. Call Rowena now. The number is 240-9962 or 1-800-570-9962. Now here's the English girl in the mountains, the agent that I would trust, Rowena Patton.
Good morning and welcome to the show. Oh, it's a funny start to the day. I've had a little hiatus here where I've been away building the listing royalty app, and I'm back in the station, and I'm sitting here, and I thought I was going to start talking. I'm like, where's the microphone? Randy has taken a little step back from, he's still doing some work, but I think he stopped working 7 days a week. And we have Thomas here. Good morning, Thomas.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Thomas is now producing. He hails from Georgia just for a little while, but we won't hold that against him. And now he's back here, and your whole family's a native, right, Thomas?
Yep. Family's from the Valdez area. I produce the afternoon show on WWNC. So, I've been doing that for a little bit since Aline and having a good time.
And welcome to Thomas. So today we're going to be talking about nerddom, common sense, numbers, how to get numbers that allow you to make intelligent conversations. So you'll know me for a while now. This is year 13 of Saturday Morning with you. So you all started listening to me when you were 20. So you're all almost middle-aged by now, right? It's just so important. I was thinking about how everything is moving now. And before we start, for those of you who don't know me, maybe you've just tuned in today, or maybe you're listening to our podcast after the event. It's broadcast live and then podcast. Maybe you don't know, when I was young, everybody said, oh, you've got an old soul and you're too young to know these things. Or I was walking into boardrooms in my early 20s. I was running a business then, and I'm still running a business now, hopefully. But I was running a business, 3 different businesses when I was 23, and I'd walk into a boardroom and they'd go, I just had to deal with the elephant in the room from a very early age. It was always, well, you're too young for this. It's kind of like what they're saying to the Doge kids now. You know, lots of young men in their most of them in their early 20s. I think one of them's even a teenager still. And it's, they're too young to be knowing or doing about this. The fact is, it's nothing to do with age. I've taught and trained and coached for a very long time, both in my management consultancy role across all kinds of industries, and now, of course, in real estate. And if I heard $1 for every time I heard somebody say, I'm too old for this, or I can't use a spreadsheet because I'm too old, it's not true. So finally, I'm old enough to prove that. I was a Google beta tester back in the day. And I broke the MLS almost here when I first got on, because you just got to think a little differently in anything you're doing. You know, those are the businesses that pop up, that people who find a way to solve a problem. And I call it a BGO. It's usually, a BGO is a blinding glimpse of the obvious, right? So what is it that you're thinking of that you just can't believe that somebody hasn't designed something to solve this issue? I'll give you a good example of that. You've all seen the guy, I don't remember his name, but he's the CEO. It's obviously not that good an ad, right? He's the CEO and founder of the company that makes frames. I think it's called Keepsakes. Obviously, it's a decent ad because I'm remembering Keepsakes. Keepsakes is an app that you can go into the app, you click on the frame. Actually, I've never been in the app, so I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm guessing that he's made it very simple. So you click on the frame and you just choose a photo out of your phone. And of course, now our entire lives are driven by our phones. Most of our photos are taken on the phones. And phones can take a darn good picture. This is how new all of this is. When I started real estate back in 2007, back in the old days, we didn't have cell phones that could take decent pictures. I guess it was amazing that we had cell phones that could take pictures at all. We definitely didn't have video on our phones. Can you believe that? At least the majority of us did not. There's probably one of you out there. Feel free to call in if you would like to. It's 828-240-9962. If you're calling in from Mars, it's 800-570-9962 if you had a cell phone way back then that had video on it. I bought one of the... So then a whole new industry was born. there were these little, gosh, I don't even know how to describe them. They were about the size of a pager, and they took great video, and they developed these things, and everybody had them. Certainly all the realtors had them to make videos and pictures. This is it's not long ago. It's less than 20 years ago. Gosh, is it that long? That's amazing. 2007, 2008. So not even 20 years ago. But there were these little boxes, and they lasted for about 2 years so they were internet capable. That was the big claim to fame, that they were. It's so funny talking about this now. So, or you didn't have to have a wire to get that video and the pictures up into the air, up into the big World Wide Web, because it was internet capable. So, oh my gosh, this was amazing. We used to have to take our cameras out as realtors if we took our own photos, of course. You know, a lot of us used professional photographers as well. I used to run a photographic company, so I generally take my own photos. So we had all the Hasselblads and all the wonderful cameras back in the day. So I would take my regular old camera out, and I had a newer camera then, and I would put a wire in it, a cable in it, of course, plug it in. And, of course, we didn't have USB-C then, which is now universal, unless you're an iPhone user. Sorry, iPhone people. But the new ones have to have it. It was made a law, actually. It was meant to be 2021. We were all using USB-C. If you don't know what that is, that's that big not semicircular, what do we call it? Oval with round corners, basically.
I'd go with oval there.
Yeah. Whereas the USB-A, of course, is the flat one with the big chunky thing that goes down underneath. So USB-C now is universal. Apple is just iPhones, I tell you. I work on a Mac. It's okay. I'm not... I have an app that works on iPhones. We're all good. However, the iPhone is always last to catch up because they're proprietary. Anything that's proprietary and not competing generally is going to be last to catch up. So there, just poked at iPhone this morning. Watch for those lawsuits coming. You can tell I'm live again, can't you? So, just think differently about how things are happening and how you're going to capture that market. I wonder if the people who made those little boxes that took the pictures and the video, and their big claim to fame was the fact that they were internet capable. And they did last for about 3 years. They were $70 or $80. They weren't inexpensive. I wonder if people made a lot of money on those companies, or they went broke because so much investment goes into a company up front. But the keepsake guy, how obvious is that? It's not new, right? But it's taking a business, I'm talking about the guy who makes the Keepsake app. We should probably look up his name, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the whole concept we're talking about here. So you click on hundreds of frames, and he claims the frames are handmade. I'm sure they are, because he says that in the ad. And he shows a picture of him. The first picture he shows is kind of cute. Him at his wedding, right? That's such an obvious idea, because what have you got on your phones? All your photos. In the main. All your photos. Here's another little tip for those of you out there. I can see one of you turning to the other and rolling your eyes about that big box of photos you have up in the attic, and you don't know what to do with them. And your kids are like, oh, I want the photos of me, or I don't want the photos. Please don't throw those photos away, Mom. And these are 50-year-old children at this point that don't have space in their house to put the photos. So you're like, what do we do with all this stuff? Did you know that if you've got a half-decent camera now, they will scan your pictures? All you got to do... Now, it takes a while, obviously. You can pay companies to do this as well. There's plenty of companies to do it. So Thomas has stepped in here. It's Adam Weiss, Keepsake Frames founder Adam Weiss. That's exactly it. And he's got young children. I don't know how old he is. He's probably, mid-30s or something. But kudos to him, because... maybe he's got some backers. I don't know the whole story. But to take a simple idea like that and then put it into an app and make it easy for all of us to frame our photos. Of course, everybody that works at the companies here that frame photos, is Michael still around here? Places like that, and the photo framers aren't very happy with me this morning. But it's so nice to be able to go into a store and feel the frame and touch it and see how big it really is. It's hard to get a feel for that. Anything that's material-based, I think.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, Thomas? I mean, you're at least 93, right?
Yeah, at least 93. I'm 26.
Okay, Thomas is 26. So what do you think, Thomas?
I think it depends what you're shopping for, especially with something like clothes, or for Mother's Day, I'm getting her some bedding stuff.
Oh, give a shout out to your mum for tomorrow.
Yeah. You have to go in person to get things like that, because you don't want to get something and then online or anything like that, and then it just comes out not how you're expecting.
From the mouth of a 26-year-old. I love this. They say, actually, that people below 30 are much more conservative with a small c, and sensible, and some common sense is coming in, and you're almost a little bit old-fashioned. Do you think there's any truth in that?
I think for me personally there is. I don't want to speak to my whole generation and say that that's the case, but yeah, to an extent, I think that holds true.
Do you want to give a shout out to your mum this morning? Are you allowed to say her name on
air? Shout out to Lillian Modak.
Lillian, happy Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there. And of course, we know it's not just a day, it's all year long. I'll give a shout out to myself because I have a new little puppy, Penny.
Oh, yeah.
Sophie's just getting used to Penny. Everybody thinks she's a Dalmatian. She's a mini Dachshund with Dalmatian colouring.
Oh, that's cute, though.
She's adorable.
How old did you say?
She is now 9 weeks old. I nearly failed Mommy Dom there, and I didn't know how old she was. So, yeah, she's adorable. So thank you for that, Thomas, and thank you to moms everywhere, and thank you to dads everywhere as well. I always like to give a shout out to dads, because there's a lot of single dads out there, or dads that are raising kids on their own, or dads that have 50% of the custody and are raising kids as well, and we don't seem to remember that. And a dad's role is very, very important. That's pretty obvious, right? But what are we talking about today? Common sense, intelligent decisions, and nerddom. So I want to jump a little bit into nerddom. Let's talk for a second about certified pre-owned. So when I got into real estate, I'm like, what the heck is this? What is this crazy industry? I was crying every third day, and I'm not a crier. It was honestly awful. I did a lot of business. I sold. I didn't even know I was selling a lot of homes. I sold a lot of homes, and this is 2007, right before the market crashed. It crashed within 6 months of me getting into real estate, which I didn't really know what was going on at that point, which is probably a good thing. And it's not something to be scared of. A change in the economy is always an opportunity for someone, right? So if you're selling right now, I would say definitely get out there or hold on to your home for 10 years. We can go a bit more into that. If you'd like me to explain to you on air, I'd be more than happy to. We can talk about Clément Jougla. You can put me in the hot seat and make me talk about it. 828-240-9962. Get on air today, or give a shout out to your moms. We've already given a shout out to Lillian. We can't tell her what kind of bedding you got, can we? Probably.
Oh,
Is it
no,
a secret?
We're going to do the picking out together for that. Because I'm not going to get something that she might not want.
Gosh, I was going to say, imagine picking out bedding for your mom. That's almost scary.
Yeah, the previous one she had gotten online, and it wasn't the color she was quite looking for, so I wanted to kind of...
The color, the fabric, everything, right?
And she's big about matching it to the paint and doing all... she designed her own house and did all that,
so... Whereabouts? Don't give me the address.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far. Over in Black Mountain.
Oh, cool. I love Black Mountain. I started off my life here in Black Mountain, in fact. So let's talk about, and if you're listening nationwide, what I want you to know is most of the real estate figures that I'm giving you today hold true. We're a good bellwether for the rest of the country, unless you're in the Northeast. So let's talk about New Jersey, because New Jersey's just weird. There, Ash Davis, if you're listening, I said it. It's just weird. No, the proximity to New York almost always means that, anybody trying to afford to live in New York these days, it's nigh on impossible. Or I can see a lot of you out there listening going, I wouldn't want to live in New York anyway. And that tax now, to drive in New York, you've got to pay $7 or $8, might be even more than that now, who knows, to actually drive in the city. So a lot of people live in New Jersey at the end of a railway station, somewhere you can jump on and actually get in quickly, because to buy a house there, you're talking about half or a quarter of the price. And so, especially if you've got a family, those communities tend to go further out, just like anywhere, when you have a family. But therefore, New Jersey's still rocking and rolling. But here's the clue. Success leaves clues. It is not rocking and rolling as much as it was 2 years ago, when it was multiple offers for every deal. Multiple offers were coming in. Connecticut, New Hampshire, everywhere up there in the Northeast is fairly flat or still seeing, a stable market, shall we see. So things are selling within 30 days. The rest of us, oh my goodness, I just came back from South Florida, for example. So South Florida, in some spots, we're seeing up to an 18% drop. I'll say that again, 18% in prices. Now, that's terrible, right? The sky is falling. Well, if you bought a year ago and you need to sell, maybe, but that's not the position most people are in. What it really means is that for buyers, finally, you're able to come in and actually afford something. I'll give you another hot spot as well. So Tampa is really having a tough time of it as well. Naples is having a tough time of it. A lot of Florida is having a tough time of it. Another area is Texas. Now, and again, I'm going for a whole state here. And like Thomas said, I'm not broad brushing a whole generation. He said, I'm not going to talk about my whole generation that way. It is funny, Thomas, that you say that, because people often say to me, you don't seem like an English person, or, you must know my friend David. The fact is that just because I've got an English accent, first of all, I've been here for 29 years, but secondly, I'm not like an average, I'm not putting myself above or below or anything else, but I'm not like an average English person, because most English people live in England, and they probably live in the same place they grew up in. Just like here, the majority of the mountains I was going to say the majority of natives. Most natives would say that's not the case at all. New people are coming in, but many people who grew up here stay here. It's much more normal than people that move about. So thank you, Thomas, for not broad brushing your whole generation to be like you. There's always standouts, and that's what the marketers like to do, because they like to market a product to people that are in Thomas's generation. Or the boomers. The boomers are the biggest marketing ploy right now. You know what the biggest one is? And talking about new products and nerdy innovation here for a second is, it's called Particle. There's a new, I don't know if it's a new company or not. I'm sure it's backed by one of the big cosmetic houses. Talk about blinding glimpse of the obvious. So it's called Particle, and you've all seen it. It's the Particle face cream. Here it is. It's for men. So how is it that for the longest time, particleformen.com it's called. How is it for the longest time, and they didn't pay me to say this, we didn't have a line of cosmetics for men? Now, men aren't going to be bothered, and I'm broad brushing here. This is how marketers do it to demographics. Men aren't going to be bothered using 6 different bottles like us silly women do, where we pay, even if you go to a drugstore, it's $20 or $30 for the serum, and then you got to put this on top of that, and then that on top of that, and then the night creams, and then the day creams that have the sunscreen in them and everything else. No, for men, it's Particle. I think it's 6-in-1 or something like that, and you just use one. And the ad is a good-looking, probably late 40s man, and then he says things like, do you notice that men who look like this, and then they show a man with age spots and looking like he had a rough night last night. Well, it is Saturday morning, so that could be the case. And then he says, and you could look like this. And of course, it's all down to Particle. What a blinding glimpse of the obvious. I'm sure this thing is flying off the shelves, and it's not inexpensive. I don't remember the exact cost. It's about $50, something like that. And that's with a discount. But it is the 6-in-1 or 5-in-1. I'll probably get sued now because I'm not saying exactly how many in one it is, but it gets rid of your age spots and your ring. It doesn't really get rid of them, but it makes them look less so, I guess we're saying. But what a blinding glimpse of the obvious. I wish I had the backing to come up with that. Thomas is looking at it now. You don't need that yet, Thomas.
Oh, no, not yet. Gotta prepare for the future,
Of course, all those 20-year-old and poor women, when they hit 30, it's like, oh, it's all downhill from here. I'm starting to get wrinkles. Again, if I had $1 for every 30-year-old woman that I know that's getting Botox. Oh, I'm having it to prevent the wrinkles coming in. Or the best one is, oh, I get migraines, so that's why I'm having all this Botox.
Keep telling yourself that.
Keep telling yourself that, yeah, too. Thomas, like every other man out there, do you prefer a woman with no makeup, a little bit of makeup for enhancement, or a lot of makeup? And you might
putting me in an
men.
awkward position here, you know?
You can make it men as well. Men, women, whatever you're into. Like, do you prefer a very coiffed or a medium coiffed, a little bit of making an effort or no effort at all?
I think a little bit of making an effort. Not
there we go.
all the time, but more for makeup. I think it's better if it just accentuates your natural beauty instead of trying to make something that isn't there.
He's his name is Thomas. You can look him up. Too funny. I think that's how most people feel, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to leap out of bed in the morning and, get your mascara on or whatever it is.
Spend an hour or so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I had girls I remember at college, girls at the big, well, I'm not an 80s college girl. But they were I'm a 90s college girl, but I guess the big hair was still in, or some of the girls I was going to college with still had the big hair, or they had the curly hair that they had to blow dry, I guess. And they'd spend an hour in the morning before college. I can believe it.
I've got pretty long hair and tried to do stuff like that when it was longer. It's just not worth it. I'm not enough of a morning person to go through that whole routine.
Thomas, by the way, has got beautiful curls. Gosh, I wish I had.
Oh, thank
I've
you.
got all the curls underneath that I have to straighten because all the top's straight. So, yeah, but those are my personal problems. Never mind. Let's look at Black Mountain, where Thomas's family are from. 28711, gorgeous little town, has a special spot in my heart because I was there for so many years. It really is. It gets voted one of the prettiest towns. It gets voted the prettiest town in the USA for good reason. It bothers everybody that happens, quite honestly. Apart from the people who are just on tourism, of course, because it is a beautiful little town and people get worried about so many tourists coming in, quite naturally. So that if this is happening in the prettiest little town in the country, and again, you can call in if you'd like, 828-240-9962 if you're calling in from Mars, 800-570-9962. And check out your zip code wherever you are in the USA. I got a call last week from a lady in Denver that wants to list a house. And I have the best agent ever working for her over there. It doesn't matter where you are. I can give you these data points. I have 30 different data points for every zip code in the country because of the national program that I'm running. I have to have these. So let's have a look at Black Mountain without further ado. Like, yeah, we've been waiting already. Get on with it. So back in 2019 pretty much at the bottom. So 6 years ago. How old are you? 26?
Yeah, 26.
Okay, so you were the ripe old age of 20. At that point. You
couldn't even drink.
Couldn't even drink, yeah. I bet you were sneaking one.
No comment.
This is where Thomas tells that he breaks the law on air. So 2019, I always look at, what's for sale. I've got some key ones in here, which are price cuts. It looks at the price cut percentage now and over the years back to 2017, and I'll tell you why that's important in a minute. So back in 2019, at the bottom, we had 94 homes for sale. The next year, as things started to improve in 2020, and we had a run-up, basically, between 2020 and really maybe 2023, it started to flatten out. So 2020, we had 79 for sale. We had 94 for sale back in 2019, down to 79. So this is year on year, and it's a comparison, right? But these are straight comparisons of what's happening in a year of real estate. So then in 2021... well, we know what was happening then. Went down to 22 for sale. People were scared to sell their houses during COVID. In 2022, 17. So we went from 94 for sale. Now, this is a small town. It's 2,500 people. And then when the summer hits, it's more like 4,000 or 5,000 people. So it's small town USA. That there is more than one stoplight, though. And it's also a thriving, bustling little town. 17. So we went from 94 to sell in April 2019 to 17 in 2022. That's an amazing drop, right? And then in 2023, obviously things were recovering. However, we've all been complaining about lack of inventory, and we only had 38 for sale. So still under half. And then in 2024, that rose to 52. So getting healthy again, right? 2025, you want to know the number? Can we do a drum roll? That is 85. We're almost at the bottom of the crash amounts. Now, why is that important? Let's go into nerd now. I'm going to use these three themes throughout the day. Let's go into nerd and a little bit of common sense. So it's really common sense. You all did basic economics at school. Supply and demand. When there's more demand, you can create more of a supply. If there is a great demand and a small supply, the prices go up, right? Because if there's a big demand, people want something, you can afford to charge more. It's really that simple. Don't overthink this. So back at the bottom, in fact, the 2 years at the bottom, 2018, 2019, 2020, we had 76 for sale, 94, and then 79. Those are the 3 years. We've now got 85, guys. It's almost the height of 2019. I could show you this in every small town all over the country. I don't know why the economists are not talking about it. I don't know why people, Barbara Corcoran is on saying it's the best time to buy a house. She's partially right in that because we have a lot of price drops and I can explain it away all I want to. But you need to know what's happening with prices. If you're a buyer and you can afford to hold on, chances are next year you're going to have lower prices. However, you may have a higher interest rate. Everybody thinks the interest rates are high right now at like 6.5. We're hovering between 6 and 7. That's normal, folks. This is where you got to bring the common sense in. If Randy were here, the producer that worked here before, Thomas, and he's not out at the farm, by the way. He's still doing some radio. He's not fully retired. So, Randy, if you're listening, we love you. So if Randy were here, he would tell you the story about when he was a younger man. It's not even that long ago, where he had an interest rate of 16 or 17%. And many of you listening have experienced that. 6 to 7 is normal. That's a normal interest rate. So will they go down? Maybe. Not that likely. And even if they do, you can refinance at that point. Is it going to cost you a bit of money? Sure. But there's other ways to do this. So it's pretty much a buyer's market right now. Everywhere in the country, apart from the Northeast, what we started out with in the beginning. So as a buyer, you can ask for the sellers to buy down your rate. Did you know that? So if they're buying down your rate, if all you're worried about is the interest rate you're paying, because we've already seen some price drops in the market, ask for a seller concession to buy down your rate. Maybe you could get a rate of 5%. Who knows? What do you want? And then you've got to think about what you pay your buyer. We'll have to do a whole show on that. How are you going to pay your buyer's agent? Because now it's all negotiable. Where we as a listing agent, this is everywhere in the country, by the way, they changed the rules. Many of us think it's hurting sellers and hurting buyers, and I would tend to agree. I'm definitely in that camp. What happens now is that before you go into a house, this is the law, guys, you have to sign a buyer agency agreement. That is creating agency. It's a contract between you and the buyer's agent. It's going to say that you will pay them X% or zero. Maybe they're a volunteer agent. I'm sort of being silly, but not really. You're going to pay them X% if that's not covered by the seller. So many sellers are saying now, well, I was paying 6% more. I want to pay 3% now. And the other 3% should be covered on the buyer's side. The problem is we haven't all gotten used to the new system and what it looks like, especially sellers and buyers, because you probably haven't bought or sold a house in the last 10 years and now everything is different. However, in all of that mess that's going on, maybe it'll come out for the better in the long run, who knows? You now can have your sellers buy down your rate. And sellers, if you're selling your house, I want you to think about that and think about making an offer. It's what we call a BGO, right? So we'll have that as another theme for the day, a BGO, a blinding glimpse of the obvious, or it's just common sense. If the buyers are worried about not buying a house because of the interest rates, then buy down their interest rate. Yes, it might cost you $10,000. Do you know what the average repair recession amount is that you give back? 3%. Now, that's when you're not a certified pre-owned home, You know, I all advise you to be a CPO home. That was my blinding glimpse of the obvious and common sense and intelligent and nerddom when I first got into real estate back in 2007, and it was a nightmare and everything was crashing. I went, wait a second, we sell certified pre-owned homes for substantially more, and they drop out 7% of the time. 7% of the time? That's outrageous. Thomas, have you ever bought a house?
No. No,
most people your age haven't these days. They're moving back in with their parents or they're renting.
Yeah.
Because houses have become so unaffordable. Do most of your friends rent, or are they at home with their parents?
Most of my friends have resigned themselves to the idea that they're probably never going to be able to own a home.
Oh, that is terrible.
Yeah, it's kind of a little sad. I don't know anybody around my age who's able to afford something. I think the only people would be someone who got lucky with like crypto or something along those lines.
Well, we need to bring your friends in one day, and I want to talk to you all about buying a home in your 20s and what that looks like.
Okay.
Do you think you can organise that and get two of your friends in that are in their 20s?
Maybe, possibly. I'm trying to move in with some of my friends, so
bring them in,
place.
yeah, because you're all looking at it. Because real estate is something that will give you wealth forever.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of what's happening with the market and how you do that. And maybe we'll just do live online how you all individually could purchase a house or purchase a house together and what that would look like.
Yeah.
Terrors of terrors. But yeah, it's a very interesting time to do it. So back to the figures now. We are all the way up to for sale inventory, 85. If that doesn't sound like a lot, we were 17 in 2022, 38 when we recovered from COVID in 2023. Last year we were 52, 85. That's a massive jump, guys. And it's around the same as the peak of the Great Depression, or whatever we wanted to call it last time around. 2018, 2020 at the bottom. We're almost at that level. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because if you are a seller, get real already. Do those price reductions. A lot of you are, and I can show you that too. So let's have a look in price cuts now. I'm going over there. I haven't even looked at this beforehand, honestly, so I'm not just, choosing Black Mountain because I like it. I do like it. It's placed dear in my heart. But this is thriving small town USA. We're going to do big town in a minute and see what that looks like. So here we are remember, we're at the bottom here. So 2000, let's look back at 2017. So this is bumping along the bottom when we were in a mess and very little was selling and sellers were getting real. So back at 2017 when things were really awful, 32.5% were doing price cuts in April. That's about a third, right? So I like that number because I can remember it easily. 32.5%, so about 1/3 were doing price cuts. That dropped, but it's almost not fair to use COVID in there because it dropped to 8%, 14%, 10%. That's really not normal. So I can tell you what normal is, actually, is 19.5%. That's a balanced market. So you'll have about 1 in 5 doing a price cut. Why are price cuts important? Because remember supply and demand. Let's talk about competition. The other houses that are for sale are your competition. Doesn't matter if you're in small town or big town, competition. Are they better prepared than yours? Do they look better than yours? Are they in a better area than yours? Do the schools get better ratings than yours? Does it have better curb appeal? Is it better staged? Is it better painted? Does it have a quartz countertop and yours has old granite or formica? Or butcher's block that's all stained and burned up? Who knows? If you're a flip house, you've probably got butcher block in there because it's cheaper. So 32.5 at the bottom. You want to know what it is now? We might need that drum roll again, Thomas. I'm going to give Thomas a minute to get his drum roll.
I do actually play drums, so.
You do?
I do, yeah.
Oh,
okay. I can't do anything too fancy. I don't have drumsticks, but.
Oh. He's doing the drum roll. I hope you can all hear that. So 32.5 at the bottom when we crashed. It's 39.2% now.
Okay.
Now, why should you be concerned about that if you're a seller? That's nearly 40%. I'm just rounding to make the math easier, right? If 40% of your competitors are dropping their price, and by the way, we've had 9 or 10 months of straight price drops now. I talk about this every week. I don't say it to scare you, because there's nothing to be scared about if you get your nerd on, if you get your common sense on, if you use your intelligence, right? Don't be scared of it. Just go, well, wait a second. Last year, it was only 23% of people at this time of year were doing price cuts. Why? Because there was less inventory. Do you remember when we looked at the amount of inventory, and it was at the levels that it was when we crashed, right? So there's more inventory, supply and demand. The supply is much, much bigger now. So therefore, buyers have a lot more to choose from, right? So therefore, you've got a lot of competition because there's a lot of homes for sale. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Thomas? You've never bought a house. Does that make sense? Or ask me questions if it doesn't.
No, that makes sense to me. I mean, I took economics classes in college and stuff, so I get the supply and demand thing right there.
Yeah. Well, I think most people did, or at least did a little bit at school. And, you know, it's really this simple. If you think about when a hurricane is coming or some bad weather is coming, and you go to the grocery store, all the bread and milk is gone, and the eggs. Well, not the eggs right now because they're too expensive. Yeah, let's not go there. They've come down in price. Even all the eggs have gone now. So the milk, the bread, the eggs, they've all gone. Why? Because there was a big demand because there's a storm coming. Now, do we want to slap those people? Yes, but that's a whole other show too. They've all gone because there was a big demand all of a sudden and the supply couldn't keep up with it. It's really that simple. There's a lot of houses out there right now. Therefore, there's always and if you're sitting at home selling, going, well, I don't need to move, I don't care. Well, that's fine. But take your house off the market in that case. Don't go through the misery that is selling your house in a conventional sale, and keep it on the market if you're just dipping your toe in. And definitely don't go, oh, well, I'm just going to test it out next year. Clément Juglar, 1860, French economist, set out the economic cycle. It's a long time ago, guys. That's 1860. We will be celebrating 200 years of him in 35 years here, coming up very soon. Or is it 45? I don't know. Thomas can do the math.
I don't know.
He did economics, but he can't work that out. I love it. Just put him on the spot there. And obviously, I really don't care, but it's a long time ago, is the point. And again, people are out there going, oh, no, house prices are going to be stable. In fact, we're expecting that they go up. Have you noticed in the news headlines that things change all the time? Isn't it interesting?
Especially this year.
Especially this year, yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about how there was we had a president in place and the news wasn't really talking about his decline. And now a lot of those people are coming out and going, oh, no, absolutely we were. Let's try and find the clip, and they can't. Or it could be tariffs, or it could be, I mean, you name it, right? It could be anything. Oh, no, I didn't say that. Let's look at the Pope. Oh, there'll never be an American Pope. Suddenly we have an American Pope. I said, how did that happen?
That's pretty wild. I was very surprised by that.
Isn't it wild? Oh, my gosh.
We had a bunch of people coming on the morning and afternoon news show, and they were like experts, and they're like, we're not going to see an American Pope.
Ever.
It's probably not going to happen.
It's going to be an Italian, right?
Yeah, or something along those lines.
They thought it was going to be Italian. So news changes all the time, and people, have you ever heard of spin? People spin news to fit their own criteria.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I'm in real estate, I've just got the honest bug, I get a gene or something. I don't know. I just want to tell you the truth, because I believe that you're intelligent enough and you've got enough common sense that when I tell you the truth and you go, oh, that's a no-brainer, you'll make the best decision. I mean, isn't that the way it should be? I'm not going to try and spin it and say, buy a house now. And no, I will. I am the how can we girl, right? So there are people that really want to buy a house now. And Thomas, you and your friends are some of them in the next 2 or 3 years when you get into your early 30s. Let's make sure you've got a house already. Or we can figure out how you can do it now, because, I want you to think about this. You can have a mortgage for 20 years. You can have a mortgage for 30 years. When you start young, you're 29 now?
26.
26. I keep getting the 6 and the 9 mixed up for some reason.
Very similar.
So 26. So if you take a 30-year mortgage, get used to this. You're going to be 56 years old. Now, 56 for that house being paid off is pretty cool. But here's the other truth. Most often you don't stay in that house. You move and you go to another house and that mortgage continues. So everybody in their 20s right now, and by the way, every other age as well, I want you to think about a 20-year mortgage. In the last 2 houses that I've been in, that saved my shirt, because usually you only add about 5 to 10% of the monthly mortgage fee. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And you pay it off a third faster. But oh my gosh, how you will be feeling that when you're 56, or if you do, I mean, my gosh, 56, isn't that wild?
Yeah.
You'll be a middle-aged person.
Scary thing to think about a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
By the time you pay the house off. Now, if you do a 20-year, you'll only be 46. 46 years old, you'll own your house outright. And it really is the greatest source of wealth for most people. And I have what I call the shift diagram, which I'm happy to share with you all. It looks at Clement-Juglar and the 7 to 11 year cycle. So I always say, if you want to stay, listen, the people who are dipping their toes in, if you want to stay in your house for 10 years, nothing wrong with that. Does that house work for you? Because if it does, and you've got that, 2% interest rate or something crazy, then stay in it, but have the mindset that you're going to stay in it. The next option is move on to where you want to be. Maybe you want to right size. Maybe you're Thomas in 20 years' time. So in 20 years' time, Thomas is 46. Let's talk about what happened to most of you who are 46 now. So when you were, I'm looking at that demographic right now. So when you were 22 years old, you got married. That stopped as well, hasn't it, Thomas, and your friends?
Yeah, don't see too many early 20s getting married.
So you're 26 years old. How many of your friends are married?
3.
Out of how many friends do you think?
15 or 20. I'm also
is that like 10%?
Yeah, probably maybe somewhere around there. I'm also talking about like friends from high school I haven't seen in a couple years at this point. But yeah,
not many.
No,
one or two out of a whole group of friends. So
yeah,
the 46 to 56 year olds now. You got married at 22, and your kids went to school you were 40 years old when your kids went to college. Is that right? 22, 32, 42 would make them 20. So they went to college at 18, so you would be 40. And then they left college when you were 42 or so. So that means, had you acted like the previous demographics acted, and that's why everything is changing in wealth here. Mm-hmm. At 46, your kids would have been out of college for 4 years, and you would own your house.
And then retirement's right there.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
maybe not right there, but
darling, I'm reaching across the table. So everybody who's over 50 right now, I'm reaching across the table and slapping Thomas for that remark. Because so they say 60 is the new 40 now, which is pretty funny. But there's lots of 60-year-olds that act like 40-year-olds. Mm-hmm. People we didn't even realize until a few years ago that our brains were elastic, right? We used to. So we were told by the powers that be that we just forget things. An old dog can't learn new tricks, right? There's all these phrases about it. Well, we discovered in the last 10 years only that our brains are elastic and we can. Hey guys, if we are live, hello, and we're back. We had a little technical glitch there for a moment. I am sorry about that. We were talking in our nerddom, and apparently neither of us is such a nerd. Fortunately, Thomas is such a nerd that he managed to get everything back up. So what were we talking about, Thomas?
Well, that's the hard part right there. What were we talking about?
See, nobody can say, oh, we're too old to remember. We have no internet, so we don't really know whether you're hearing this or not. But if you are, then we love you anyway. And so we were talking about what the numbers were for Black Mountain. I can't see them anymore because we don't have internet, but that's okay. And we've got a nice reverb going on. So I'm sorry, everybody. I apologize.
That was me testing to make sure we're on, and I believe we should be good now.
Yay! Fantastic. Good job, Thomas. So we were looking at the numbers for small town America, essentially, and basically saying there is double and triple the amount on the market. We're back at the levels that we were in the crash, and You'll just have to trust me because now we don't have internet. It's amazing what happens when we don't have technology, right? Really wonderful things usually. Fortunately, I've got a brain and I'm not relying on it, and I do my research and I know what's going on with the figures because I run a national program. And big city USA is actually suffering a little bit more than small town USA in almost everywhere in the country. So again, if you're just tuned in, we're talking about what's going on with market figures right now. Let me come back to what I was talking about in price cuts. So price cuts are very important to look at because, why? In 6 months' time, when all those price cuts come home to roost, you are going to have sales that will lower. What does that mean? Well, they then record with lower prices and the comparables are much lower. And then the well over half, probably 60, 70%, 80% in some areas where people are getting mortgages to buy their homes, the mortgages will get more and more difficult to get because the homes aren't comping. That's exactly what you start seeing. The appraisals aren't happening. You've got two choices at that point. The buyer can pull out, or you can reduce your price, which a lot of people do. So remember, you can go to cashcpo.com, skip all this listing nonsense. You it's a full market value price offer. You can go right there and get an offer on your house without even thinking about listing it. Cashcpo.com. It works all over the country. Or we can do a conventional listing. Don't do that. Do a certified pre-owned listing where you get the inspection up front. It's more important than anywhere, guys. So, keep thinking about that and doing that. So it's very, very, I'm sounding like Trump now. It's very, very important. It's very, very big. You got to think about doing that because everybody goes in eyes wide open at that point, which makes a lot more sense. See you next week on the radio, guys.
This has been the Plain English Real Estate Show with Rowena Patton. Visit Rowena and post your questions at radioasheville.com or call her at 828-210-1648.